Right. Hey, folks. Welcome to a new episode of Common Sense Live. We are super pumped, excited to have you with us. We've got a night, or a day rather, of lots of exciting debates, discussions. But before we get into things, I want to first encourage you to share the stream with somebody, hit the like button. Wherever you're watching from, you can comment, you can get involved. We can hear you, we can see you. Please get involved. Lots of interesting debates, lots of great guests coming right up. I am one half of your screen, and also I'm one half of the hosts because I'm joined by the lovely.
Oh, sorry, that was a cue. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
Let's do that again. Joined by the lovely.
We're using words today. We're joined by the lovely
Afshan D'Souza Lady.
There we go. Sorry, guys. Afshan just forgot how to speak for a minute there.
Sorry. It's been a long week. That's why.
It has been. But Afshan, on that, how's your week been? What kind of stuff have you been getting up to? What's been the highlight of the week so far?
Oh, I don't know. Well, we're into February. We've done January. Mm-hmm. We're over January. We've got only 11 months left of 2021. And we're 1 month away from 2020, which is great. So 1 month away from forgetting that it ever happened. I don't know. The days are getting slightly longer. There's more sun. I'm really excited for like sunlight again. Do you remember what that was like?
Yes, vaguely. Yeah. I vaguely remember. Of course, folks, it was interesting how we thought 2021 would be the year where things would go away. We thought certain stories would be put to bed, but of course, they're carrying on. I'm speaking here about Trump's impeachment trial in the Senate that's coming up just next week. I'm talking, of course, about COVID and what seems to be this never-ending saga of, vaccinations, lockdowns. I mean, it seems like this is in many ways just like 2020, but it is different. We have a new president of the United States. We've got a tale of rich versus poor, David versus Goliath, which we're going to talk about as well. And kind of a global body getting involved in national affairs. We'll talk about that too. So lots of interesting topics to speak about. I want to encourage you, if you're watching, to tell us where you're watching from, just to get a sense of people. Folks, this is not a solo affair. We want you to get involved. So you can comment right now, tell us where you're watching from, and so we can interact with you. I'm a Londoner, but I realized today, actually, that here's the thing. So I've been in the North for a while, and it turns out, Afshan, that the North has had some impact on me, because a few days ago, someone asked me, do you have any friends in sport? And I said, I have a friend who's a footballer. And I literally reeled off like, I mean footballer. It's footballer. But in the North, they say footballer. What other words do you say wrong in the North?
Wow. The words. Do you know, so garage is like a really northern term, right? When I went to school, it was quite a posh school, and there were like young lads that would say garage. So it'd be like garage music, and I'd be like, no, it's garage. Like no one says garage. It's like posh.
I think we say garage. What do we say in South East London? Is it garage or garage?
Grass and garage, and in the North we say glass and grass and class and garage. Yeah, because it's garage, not garage.
Right, very, very interesting.
I will say really, really briefly and quickly that I do love like the Scouse and Brummie accents. So if you're from Liverpool and Birmingham, do drop us in and let us know what other people think about your accents. I'm really intrigued by, because my accent fluctuates and changes all the time. I'm really fascinated by other people's accents. So yeah, do let us know where you're calling in or listening in from. It's always good to, it's good to know, right?
Yeah. Before we get into the first story and bring on some great guests, there is something about this whole identity thing. There's an article that's coming out tomorrow on Common Sense, so tcsnetwork.co.uk, all about this report that Gordon Brown wrote, or his commentary rather, where he said that he thought the tensions between the different nations in the UK was kind of getting to fever pitch, and people are actually losing confidence in how the UK is run. And I imagine this kind of accent debate is probably a proxy from something much deeper, which is obviously, I'm a Londoner. So as far as I'm concerned, the UK ends in Tottenham, whereas some people think the UK is much bigger than it actually is.
Wow. You don't need a visa, those of you in London, to go past the M25. You can just hop on the Virgin Train Express or, drive on the motorway and come up north. I hear a lot of hate actually when it comes to accents, particularly when it comes to like the dating sphere as well. I know that like a lot of like my friends that are from Birmingham that are lads, they get a lot of abuse for having a Brummie accent and whatnot. So I think it's a class thing. I really think it's a class thing. I think you Londoners really think that you're like hip and cool and that, and really you're not. You just live like in a slightly densely populated area with a lot of noise and air pollution. And that's about it, really. We've got like more space. We've got like greenery and like grass outside and like garages, and you guys go to the local warehouse, listen to garage music, or rather not local. It's more like, 3 zones later.
You know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking you know a lot about London for someone who is from Manchester. It's almost as though you're obsessed with London, which is what I find. I find people go, "Oh, I hate London. I hate London," and then literally you ask them, "What are you doing with your life?" And they're like, "I want to move to London," and you go, "Oh, that's interesting. Thought you didn't like it." Anyways.
Right? No, I don't hate London. I used to live in London. I hate Londoners that do this, Mike, that kind of think that London is the be all and end all. That's what I hate. I don't have a problem with London itself.
It's the capital. It is the capital.
There's also like the rest of the UK, the rest of England, all of Wales, all of Scotland, all of Northern Ireland, poor Northern Ireland. We always forget about Northern Ireland. We did literally with Brexit. We were like, oh, whoops, what's going to happen there? Let's just leave them to figure it out. 200 years after the sort of partition between Northern Ireland and Republic of Ireland, we were like, oh no, whoops. Let's just leave them to do what.
Folks, we didn't plan on starting this divided, but here you go. Never talk about accents. Let's move on to our first story, which, if you're a hedge fund manager watching this, you're probably not happy. And if you're the ordinary man, you're probably you're over the moon right now. But I'm gonna leave it there and pass over to Afshan to take us with the first story.
So I've always been intrigued by this idea of stocks, right? Mainly because I'm like, people make a lot of money off it. Like Bitcoin went mental a couple of years ago. And I actually want to bring in another common sense writer, Aaron. If you're here, come on up, because it'd be good to get your perspective on this as well. And what I think really interesting about this whole Gamestop stock situation is the way that it has divided people into this kind of like rich versus poor, Robin Hood versus the rest of the free market versus the general public, the kind of like the layman, as it were. And Aaron, I know you've got strong views and perspectives on this. Please do let us know what is it. What's your perspective on this whole GameStop scenario?
Well, I mean, I find it quite ironic that a company called Robin Hood, who traditionally, according to the story, is supposed to take from the rich to give to the poor, is now taking from the poor to give to the rich. I find it really ironic, quite rich actually. Let me just make it clear for people who are watching. I fully agree with this decision. It's a free market. People have to be allowed to make money. All the Redditors have done is found a way to exploit the free market to their advantage. And Wall Street does not like it. It's as simple as that. They've been beaten at their own game and they don't like it. The thing is, the only people who are angry about this are people who are losing money. You got hardcore Republican Ted Cruz agreeing with Democrat Alexandria, can't pronounce the surname. You know who I'm talking about, innit? Alexandria Cortez, right? Yeah. You've got, you're not talking about, you got what's his name? You got Elon Musk telling people to go on and carry on. It's like they're making money legitimately. I don't know what the big deal is. If you're losing money, then you have every right to be upset. I mean, these people are making money legitimately.
So let me just explain this scenario, and I'm not gonna lie. This is like really complicated. So if someone in the comments wants to correct me at any point, feel free. But from what I understand, this is what has happened. GameStop are stocks that exist, and essentially investment bankers and people that hedge fund managers that make money off of this stuff borrow stock from, say, GameStop, for example, and then sell it off to other places to invest and make more money. And essentially what happens is that when that one stock comes back to then call back and say, we want our stocks back, they then have to sell it back. And there was a Reddit post that was sort of going semi-viral, which was mainly young people, I believe, that were sort of saying, oh, let's do one over, let's do the big man one over, and let's buy these stocks so they can't then buy them back. So essentially, a lot of these then rich men that were generalizing, rich people that had these borrowed stocks and had to buy them at a higher price. And essentially it just went higher and higher and higher to the point where I think that's when Robinhood stepped in and were like, well, actually, we're going to stop you from being able to buy any more of the stock, because if you carry on this way, the entire system could just crash. So it was more to save the wider market. This is my understanding of it. You're disagreeing, Aaron, please. What are you disagreeing?
This is what confuses me. How stocks work. I mean, I'm not a financial person. Richard might be one, but as far as I'm concerned, the more money you put into a company, the more value the company has, and therefore you get more out of it. That's a legitimate way to make money. How is it then less legitimate? How is it more legitimate for people to pretty much accelerate the downfall of a company by buying stock and selling it back to them for less than its value, and using these companies that are going down as sort of kind of, I wrote in my article, as an institutional casino? All they are simply pawns in like a wider scheme. So how is that legal? But then people who are making money legitimately are being now shafted.
It's a bit like the recession that happened, right? In 2007. We can't say 20 because it was that far back. 2007, 2008, this idea that actually people were selling mortgages and selling loans at a value that wasn't the same as the actual value of the loan. And that's what's happening with these stocks, is they're kind of going higher and higher. Gamestop stocks were a lot higher than they were valued at, because people were having to buy them back at a higher rate, because they had to pay them back to the people they borrowed from. So it wasn't that they were worth what they were worth. It was going to go higher and higher and higher until we got to a situation where it would have nowhere else to go, because they're not worth that much. And I guess the question that we're debating here, the question that we're kind of asking is, should an external body step in and stop a crash like that from happening? And if we equate it back to the recession, which was a very similar scenario in that, it just kind of spiraled out of control, where bad debt was being sold and being sold and being sold and being sold again. And it just goes completely off the charts. If somebody had stepped in then, potentially we wouldn't be in a scenario where we're in right now. But I'm really interested. So you don't buy stocks, Aaron?
I mean, look, the way I see it, that there are three ways you can look at this, right? You have the economic side of it, which is what you just explained. You have the class part of it, where they think it's some kind of war between, some kind of power struggle between the rich and the poor. And then you have the big tech thing, which buys into a couple of weeks ago when Trump was silenced by Twitter and stuff like that. The idea of big tech companies stepping in, not the government, big tech companies, private institutions stepping in and deciding who can do what, basically. So it's all about where that regulation line is drawn. It's a fine line you have to draw between the two. In terms of class, it depends on where you stand by it, because from what I researched, most of the people who are buying stocks in GameStop now are working class people. I've heard some outrageous stories where people have bought, like, say, $500 worth of stocks, and by tomorrow it's worth like 10, 20 grand. And I heard a story online where a guy paid off his entire mortgage and his student loan with it, and he's still making money to this very day. A guy literally paid off his whole house, and he's now going for a second house to rent out just from GameStop. So that's one part of it. I mean, are we saying that only a certain class of people are allowed to make money now?
No, not at all. Not at all. And I think that that's a really important point, actually, that you bring up. I just want to go back to a slightly earlier point you made about tech and companies having ownership over what you can and can't do on their platforms and with their apps and things like that. And I want to equate it to the cinema, for example, right? When you go into the cinema, you buy into this idea that you're going to go in and you're going to buy the popcorn and the drinks and whatever from that venue. And up until recently, and still I believe in the US, there is this policy where you cannot take in your own food into the cinema. And you have to buy the stuff from them. They'll do bag checks and things like that. Now, that is a company, like say Odeon or whatever it is, that then says, you are entering my premises, you're entering my app, therefore you have to abide by my rules and my laws, which say that you cannot bring in your own food. Now, obviously, there are people that will argue and say, oh, I'm diabetic, or but my kid needs food, or but I'm hungry. And the response will be, well, then you can't come in. And I think they have medical exemptions, I think, in the States. Someone please come in and correct me if you think that's wrong. But there are medical exemptions transactions, but generally speaking, you don't really pay. You know, you kind of buy into this agreement. And I think that is the idea with Robinhood, which is a third-party trader app that just said, actually, we're just not going to allow this to happen any further. So it's very similar to just kind of saying, this is our policy, this is where we're at. It's less about us kind of buying out the poor man and not allowing the working class people to be able to buy stock. We just don't want to get to a point where it's going to completely crash the system. MT, what do you think about this?
Yeah, so listening to both of you, trying to ascertain kind of where you both sit on this, I think it's important to be aware that the bigger debate here is about whether we have a system that works for the ordinary person. Because essentially, why Robinhood stepped in to correct things, and where we've had the CEO of the NASDAQ on MSNBC and all these other platforms calling for more regulation. I mean, imagine that. Libertarians who are in favor of free markets suddenly want more regulation. And I guess what makes ordinary people so angry is because it seems like it's one rule for the rich, class, right? Who have been colluding for years. Yes, in America, you have what's called a revolving door, where folks finish working for the government, leave, work for Goldman Sachs, right? Leave, go back to work for the government. This has been going on for a long, long time. And just because you had a group of people on Reddit suddenly band together to say, we're not going to allow the GameStop stocks to be shorted, we're gonna literally prop up the company. Their value rose by something like 117% in a couple of hours. This is what we see on the other side. But here's what I'm getting from this story is it's okay when we do it as the rich, but when ordinary people organize in this way, no, we need regulation. This is unacceptable.
Exactly. And this one I'm trying to say to you, Mike. I agree with what you're saying. People across the spectrum are outraged about this. Literally, the only people who are not happy about this are the people who are losing money. Everyone that I can think of, rich, poor, left, right, whatever you want to call it, they're all equally outraged. So, I mean, you made a comment just now about how did the system work for the average man. This system, what's happening right now with GameStop, is working out very well for the average man. The only people who are losing money are the people who are investing in short sellers. It's not working well
anymore, though. So my system.
Yeah, because Robinhood stopped it. This is the idea.
This is the point that the system in general works like that. So even if Robinhood hadn't stepped in, I doubt it would have gotten to a point. It would have just crashed, because you get to a point and it just tips and it crashes. That's how it works. You can't just keep going forever and ever and ever. You don't get to that point. It's a finite resource. But I think what's really interesting about this conversation is how inaccessible stocks and this conversation was to the wider public until Reddit came forward and did this, and does this like GameStop type thing with it. I just want to see, is Richard in the studio that might want to come in? I know Richard does a lot of work and a lot of research into stocks and has actually written a piece for us, an information piece on GameStop. Richard, what is your perspective on Robinhood, GameStop, and stock in general?
Well, it's a tricky one. There's a lot of questions involved in that. I've just come in from a snowstorm. So in terms of, I think the whole saga started out as quite a good idea. There's been a lot of criticism leveled at the Wall Street bets and the Reddit group and so the mainstream media at the little guy, and they've leveled a lot of criticism saying, oh, they just got lucky, or they just bundled in, and it was, but there was a lot of methodical thinking, and you had to have a lot of understanding of how the stock market works in order to beat these hedge funds that do this day in, day out for decades on end. They'd actually just on their, they have a Discord and a Reddit, and they had actually, before they got the wider public involved, and then people in Europe and Africa and Asia all buying these stocks as well, they'd already beaten these guys, Melvin Capital. In terms of Robinhood, there was sort of two issues going on there. One is with the advent of commission-free broking, they have to make their money somewhere. And they've been peddling margin accounts, so loaning out. So they have to front the money themselves for people to be able to trade. And they've been pushing this to the retail investor who, say, has $50, $500, maybe a couple of, $3, $4, $10,000. The trouble is they had to get their money from selling those orders onto the clearinghouses, one of them being a market maker, Citadel. And there's a conflict of interest there between Citadel, who was actually net short on games, so they were betting against, alongside other hedge funds, all these dying legacy companies like GameStop. Yet they're the ones who are giving sort of most of the revenues to the retail brokerages like Robinhood. So there's an obvious conflict of interest there. And then it came out that the White House and Citadel and these other guys who were in trouble, who had like billions in the hole, were suddenly calling around all the retail brokerages saying they were going to cut them off. Effectively, that would have bankrupted them. And it would have led to, in margin accounts, you don't have you don't have any protection, unfortunately. So that money would have all been lost, and they'd have just, all these people with accounts, millions of traders, would have ended up just being creditors in bankruptcy. That's the sort of one of the key risks of margin trading. Whereas if you have a cash account, so myself, I only ever trade with cash. I never go on margin. So I don't get involved in specifically shorting or anything. But it shows a clear need to decentralize the market and also restrict. The whole point of this was Wall Street got greedy, and they started naked shorting. So they were adding more supply into the market of shares that didn't even exist in order to drive down these companies to zero. And they've been quite successful in doing that, and they've got caught out.
The problem, though, as well, across the board, is that Wall Street, because that was recession, Wall Street got greedy, big companies get greedy, and they ruin it all for the rest of us. The rest of us can't buy small stocks or Bitcoin or, try and invest in things because we've got big companies like this that jump in. But, if you do want to read more about GameStop and stocks, do look at the TCS Network website. We have got an information article that Richard has written, which just sort of breaks down exactly what's happened. Because I'm not going to lie, I had to watch a TikTok video to understand what all of this was. And even then, I'm still like, I'm sorry. So why did you borrow off such to pay off this person? And, and maybe it's just something that doesn't make sense to me because I haven't paid attention to it that much in the past. And now I'm suddenly.
Ask a question really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Really quickly. Like how you said earlier, one final point, what you said earlier about how if it keeps going this way, in terms of stocks, Robinhood and GameStop, it will crash eventually. Would the opposite way be true as well? Would it crash if short sellers eventually started to accelerate the demise of businesses to the point where it would no longer be viable to do business and kind of like centralize? Do you know what I mean? Like, would it work the other way? I don't know. I'm not.
The company would lose. From my understanding, is the company would lose that way. The problem is that when you short sell from the way you're talking about the other way around, the company would lose out, and GameStop as a company might not exist and cease to exist, and that would probably crash. But when you're doing it the way that's happening now, is in order to buy the GameStop stock to pay off the people you borrowed off, and the price keeps going higher, you have to buy more and more stocks, which means that the company as a whole, the market system as a whole crashes because you're buying from one part to sell to another part, to borrow from somebody else, to sell to somebody else. It's just a lot of crisscrossing lines. And that's what crashes rather than the rest of it. But we're going to move on onto next topic. Thank you very much, Aaron and Richard, for your views on this. And do let us know in the comments section if you agree. Do you side with Robinhood? Do you side with the investment bankers? Do you side with Wall Street? I hope you don't side with Wall Street, but if you do, cool, I guess. I don't know.
I don't mind if you side with Wall Street and you've got the capital, you're more than welcome into my life. And so please feel free to comment. from one contentious debate to obviously another. By the way, folks, this is a good time for you to like, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, but also share this stream with somebody because the next topic is really interesting. We're going to be talking about the plight of the black community in America. I've been on Clubhouse and many Clubhouse rooms where I'm just pulling my hair out. Bear in mind, there's only a bit of hair left, right? And I'm pulling it out when people talk about Joe Biden and the black community. And we want to talk about a story that came up just a week ago, but I think it's still relevant. There's been long, ever since Joe Biden first stepped on the debate stage, people have been really thinking, is Joe Biden going to actually do something for Black Americans? Every election cycle, it seems that we have these politicians who rise up and say all sorts of stuff about what they believe about the American Black population. And so with Joe Biden, he won, as we know, on the back of Black and minority voters. So the debate right now is, well, will Joe Biden actually help Black Americans? Now, one of the first moves Joe Biden's made as president in celebration of Black History Month, which currently is in America, is he's moving to put the anti-slavery activist Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill. And some are saying, great, we love it. This is the kind of things we want. Others are saying this is just more grandstanding. So I want to find out, but with the help of some common sense journalists, is this grandstanding? Does this work? You know, is this the way America should be going, or is he offering these platitudes when really we need serious investment policy and things like that? So I'm going to invite Toby, who writes for us, and Siobhan, all the way from America, to join this conversation. Folks, what are your thoughts on this story in the first instance? What do you think?
So you can start, Siobhan, if you want. You're on mute.
Siobhan, I'm going to say the word, the phrase, you're a mute.
Hey, I'm back. I'm back and I'm better. Okay, so anyway, I really personally think that it's a great gesture. I mean, he is putting Harriet Tubman on a $20 bill to replace Andrew Jackson, which was one of the most sexist, racist presidents that we have ever had. So I think that it's a step in the right direction. I still say, where's my money? But I do think that this conversation would have been brought up 10 years ago, 5 years ago. It wasn't that kind of conversation. And now it's actually, you're putting your pin where your mouth is, in a sense. So,
quick question: when you say where's my money, what do you mean by that? Does Joe Biden owe you money?
Where's my stimulus check? So we're talking about
reparations. Okay, that's what we want.
Right. But also too, yes, I think this is also, like, I can see the argument with the showmanship, and I still think that policy needs to be set in place for, like I said, the Black community. If that's because you ran on the backs of Black America. That's how you won. That's how you won Georgia. But at the same time, I think it's a start.
Yeah. Toby, what do you think? You're obviously in the UK, you're in London. When you look to America, I mean, are you happy with Joe Biden doing this? Do you think this is him just kind of grandstanding, or do you think this is legitimate?
I think it's interesting that, you know, people are complaining that a Black woman is going on a US dollar. If anything, this is a moment of solidarity and a moment we should be celebrating. I don't think Joe Biden's stance is saying, I'm just going to do this and then forget about the Black community. He's a month into his term, and he's already implementing so many things that are symbolic in nature but easy to do, right? Like the conversation about putting a Black person on the British pound, that's something that would receive a huge media backlash. And this is something that's being done in America. If we actually want to strive for racial equality, if we want racial integration, then this needs to happen. You know, we should even be asking questions that why wasn't this done sooner? Why wasn't this done? Why has it taken, you know, so many years for a Black woman or even a Black person to be on an American dollar? So I don't see this as Biden trying to, you know, cop out on his promises. I just see this as a very good thing that a lot of people will be inspired by.
Yeah. My question immediately, Afshan, I would love to get your thoughts on this too, is what do Black people even want to be on the dollar? Should they want to be on the dollar? I've seen the narrative that, well, hold on, like, you know, America and what the dollar represents, it's not something that Black people should want to be a part of, full stop. So, you know, why are we celebrating something that, and why aren't we even questioning it? And it's kind of like we've almost agreed that a priori, this is a good thing. But is the dollar something that Black people should even want to?
I think I don't want to sort of cut you off. What's interesting about that is are we saying that black people don't want integration anymore? Because that's what Martin Luther King preached, right? You know, if you listen to what Martin Luther King's ideology was, is he wanted black people to be equals in America, right? So there are legitimate arguments about the black community separating and building their own community and building their own community separate from white people in America. But that's not what some people in the civil rights movement actually stood for. So if we want to have more integration in America, this is a step in the right direction.
I'm just going to interrupt that, maybe, because I think that there's an important distinction to be made. That and obviously I don't want to speak for black people because I'm not black, but I think there's something to be said about people building their own space outside of whiteness when it's there in order to maintain and save people versus people going out of their way and creating separation. And I think what we're seeing now, and what we've been seeing over the past hundreds of years, is that white people systemically and systematically have removed black people from a lot of spaces and people of color from a lot of spaces, which is why those spaces and those pockets of black people and people of color and like black entertainment television and networks exist where money is being put in. And the black pound, as it were, is being created. And now suddenly all the white people want in, and that's where the conversation is going. So I think there's an important distinction to be made about who is separating from who and who is building their own thing on their own. And then suddenly everyone is like, why are you out there separating yourself? You should be integrating with the white community. And actually, you know, black people and people of color have tried to integrate with the white community. The white community said no. So they went and did their own thing. And now suddenly they're being berated for creating their own systems, their own education systems, their own institutions, as it were, and their own money. Yeah. So I think that's an important thing to bring out. And in terms of like, yeah, I'll leave it there.
Yeah, for me, it's not about a question of integration with white people. It's more so, personally, I feel like every African American is entitled to the US dollar. As in, this is your currency, right? You built America, you are entitled to the White House and everything America has to offer, right? And in saying that, why don't you deserve to also be on the dollar, right? I understand that, you know, black people need to build their own community and build their own wealth and try and keep it within their community, but that doesn't still mean that they can't have a stake in the US. And I think this is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, okay. I was just like and to go off of the comments is like, what is Harriet Tubman being on the dollar? For years, we were not even included to be in the room. We're not even a part of this conversation. So you all have to come back to where Black America was. We were seen as property. And then we were 2/3 of a person. So to see where we have came, although America was built off of our backs, to see where we have come to where we are today, I think it's a huge stretch. Yes, it should have been done, but it's racism in America. So yeah. Take your little wins, but don't stop here. I'm not saying stop at being placed on a dollar, the dollar currency that we deserve to be on. Like,
yeah, policy. Do you not think that a better policy would be for every, I don't know, Harriet Tubman note that goes past the bank, $1 is being given to, you know, black people that actually want money and need the money rather than being seen on it. And I think that, you know, going back to something you said earlier, Toby, is this just the empty, is it just a black square on Instagram? Is this just someone who's doing something to show and for the sake of it? And until we see the actual money being actually given to black people, and while it's really good and it's great to have Harriet Tubman on it, and I'm not going to say don't do that, I'm just asking what next, right? This can't be what we celebrate.
Speaking directly to the people who've said that this is a waste of time, this is redundant, of course, I think what we're all agreeing on here is that, you know, societal change takes policy, of course, but there's also a range of kind of, you know, debates that needs to be had. There's symbolic gestures that need to be part of the mix as well. And I guess all these different things together is what kind of moves America in the right direction, for want of a better term. I will throw something at you before we move on to the next topic, which was something I heard again on a Clubhouse chat. I really should stop going on Clubhouse because every time I go on, I get stressed. But someone said that Obama did nothing for black Americans. Now, of course, that's wrong. But moving forward anyways, they then said that it's impossible for Obama or the president to do anything for black people because the president of America, like, just intrinsically is is emblematic of like imperialism and the subjugation of black people. So there's nothing he can do to fix years and years of, you know, ego, you know, oppression, you know, all the kind of bitter things black people have had to swallow. And for that reason, you know, some have just lost hope and said there's nothing you can do. So to both our guests and Avshan too, what should Biden prioritize in his presidency? Because, you know, and do you think he can actually do anything for the black cause in the next 4 years? You know, or do you think it's going to be lots of platitudes and stuff like that?
I think on Clubhouse, right, you've got a lot of people on there that operate where they have like sort of high level of low level thinking. Now, that's what I like to call it, right? They don't think big picture. They can't see things like what Obama actually did for a lot of Americans. Obviously, if you're president of America, Obama said it when he was running, he wasn't there to be the president of Black America. But the argument that he did nothing for black people, I think, is illogical, because he did. You know, when he became president of America, the world was in the worst financial crisis. And if you compare Obama's presidency to Trump's presidency, who comes out on top, right? I don't think there's a legitimate argument to say that Obama didn't do anything for black people, but that's just my stance.
But what about on Joe Biden? What do you think he should prioritize? And or perhaps an even better question: do you think he can make any, like, you know, considerable gains in the next 4 years?
I don't think anything Joe Biden does will appease or satisfy members of the black community. I don't think anything the president can do will ever satisfy and please the black community. There will always be people that want more. There will always be people who will say that he did absolutely nothing. All Joe Biden can do is, you know, be the president of America and use his best judgment to enact policies that he think will benefit the majority of Americans and the majority of people who have been oppressed by America's systems and stuff. So I think ultimately, I don't think people will ever be satisfied, because, Mike, when you ask these people to measure what they'll be satisfied by, they start talking about destroying structures and all these other abstract things, and they can't give you something that they would be satisfied with. So
it's not better to strive for greatness than to be satisfied with one small kind of like gesture and then kind of go, oh, that's it, I don't need to move any further? Should we not always be striving for greatness and striving for the best and strive to know everything and to be everything and to get to that point? So of course we're not going to be satisfied with where we are, because
the presidency is 8 years, right? And the way I like to see the
it's 4 years.
No, I mean, sorry, 4 years, and then obviously Obama.
If you're Trump, it's 4 years.
I'm talking particularly about Obama's tenure, right? He did 4 years in the White House. I see the presidency as a relay race, right? Someone passes you the baton and you can do the best you can to run your part of the race, right? So for you to say Obama, there was no progress under Obama, is a lie. But what people want is they want someone like Biden to run the full course of the race. He's not going to do it. In 8 years' time, America would have progressed and moved in the right direction. But all the issues in America that black people face will not be fixed. And I think ultimately, if we're operating on that, people will be disappointed.
And then what people also need to understand too with American politics is, yes, the president is just the face. The people who have power in American politics are your legislatures, are the people who also vote to hear the laws at Capitol Hill. Those are the people you also need to be holding to the wire. Joe Biden, if he doesn't put in any kind of like legislation, put a bug in Chuck Schumer's ear, Nancy Pelosi's ear, that's on him to try to progress the black community. But when people say that Barack Obama or nobody did anything for the black community, I mean, we all need health care. He tried with health care.
Pretty big thing, actually, yeah.
Wow, yeah. And then you also go into, you go into so many things like crime. We all don't want to be living and be shot up in our houses or just clean up the streets. So I think Joe Biden will start, and it will have, this is just a measure. I think that he'll try to implement policies to help America overall. And then also too, if he doesn't put that in place, he has the House and the Senate.
I want better for us. I want better for us in general. So like, I want us to strive for better and ask for more and be critical so that we could get better, I don't want us to be satisfied with, I feel like I'm preaching. I don't want us to be satisfied.
You do sound like you're giving a motivational speech, Afshan, I must say.
I just don't want us to be satisfied with Harriet Tubman on the note and kind of go, oh, we've won our fight for 2021.
No, I don't think anyone's saying that, right?
But when it came to Obama, for example, I'm not saying he didn't do anything, but there were things he did, you know, what do you call it, like sign off on drone strikes that were happening. There was a lot of stuff that he did that went underground because actually he was Obama, and I know I guess I'm quite don't put the spotlight on me while I'm doing this. But like I feel there is, I have issues with institutions in general, but even that aside, like there are so many things that Obama and Biden in their kind of like presidency of 8 years. And remember, Biden's been doing this for 8 years longer, right? So he's had some time and experience doing this. So I expect a lot more from him now. Even during that time, there were a lot of things that went underground that we didn't really talk about, that we didn't really kind of like highlight, and we've almost forgotten, to the point that, you know, we see Michelle and Barack Obama walking down and we're like, oh, they look really beautiful. Isn't that really amazing? And we ignore some of the stuff that went on over that 8 years. And what I don't want to happen is that similar attitude with Joe Biden, where we kind of go, oh, it's great that he's started off the presidency by putting Harriet Tubman on the bill. And that's it. We go nowhere further than that. I want that to be like,
no, I think you're right. Hold on 1 minute. I think you're totally right, because ultimately it seems as though we're all saying the same thing, which is almost it's great, but not this alone, this and what else, as it were. So this is like a, thank you, let's keep going. And that's okay. I think that's what we should do for our political leaders. I think we should hold them to account. I also have this rule to go off Afshan's kind of life lessons. I always tell friends, because I'm a massive film buff, judge films based on the genre that they intend to be. So when folks look at an action movie and they're like, oh, it's predictable. Well, it's action, right? It's about stuff blowing up. It's not meant to trick you, right? You judge films on the genre they're in for what they're intending to do. In the same way, you look at the presidency. It still beggars belief when people go, oh, Obama did this, as the commander in chief. He's literally the commander in chief. That's literally his job, is to act on threats, to neutralize. So when people go, I can't support anybody who sanctioned, quote unquote, someone being killed, or you're a pacifist. How can you be a pacifist and lead a country? That just beggars belief for me, because in the modern era we live in, I just think it's kind of like trying to judge an action movie as though it's a comedy film. But I think you're both right. That we have to definitely do more to hold Joe Biden to account. He can't just sign executive orders, because if he does that, the next president won't sign them. He needs to pass laws. He needs to use the Senate. It needs to use the House. And hopefully that way things will get better. Unfortunately, this is all we have time for. So I know. But we're going to move on to the last topic, which is, of course, thank you so much, Siobhan. Thank you, Toby. This last topic, of course, is about the WHO. So over to you, Afshad.
I had a really great title for this because it was a really great pun, and it was like, who's the vaccine? Like, who? WHO's. You're not laughing. Great. Thanks for all of that love and support. So this is the story that the WHO has asked the UK to pause the vaccination rollout. And this is essentially an institution, a World Health Organization, has come forward and said that the way that we're sort of getting vaccines rolled out in the UK, the way that we are imposing export bans and limits on the vaccine in order to keep the supply in the UK actually is an unfair advantage. And it's not something that we should be striving to. It is morally corrupt, as it were. The idea is that instead of us trying to give every UK adult a first dose by autumn, we should be ensuring that actually there is fair distribution globally by the end of 2021, instead of doing that. And I think that this has sort of caused a massive debate and conversation amongst people about whether or not the UK should be allowed to keep its vaccines within the UK and hoard resources. And I'm using those words very, emphasizing them, hoarding resources, or whether the UK in its like greatness, the Great Britain, should be doing what, it claims to have done generally and distribute globally the vaccine in the way that China has distributed PPE when, at the beginning of coronavirus. So Mike, what are your thoughts on this?
I don't want to take any lessons from the WHO. Thank you very much. I'm kind of done with the kind of moral posturing of these international supranational organizations who have opaque leadership structures. We don't know who they are. The ordinary man has no clue how it works, and they sit on this moral high ground telling us how we should be behaving. If anything we've learned from this, if there's anything we've learned from this season or this period, it's about protectionism. Protectionism is well and truly back. This idea that nation states would act as nation state. I think this last year has been the year of the states. States have really emerged, and all these globalist tendencies that countries had has weaned over time. We need states. States are important, and I don't think anyone can blame the UK, who at some stage was second in the world in terms of coronavirus cases and was really high on deaths. No one can blame us for protecting our country. And I think it's really rich that the WHO, that has all sorts of different, I mean, there's so much we can go into, could tell us and lecture us about morality. Thank you, Margaret, but no.
I'm going to bring in Torin in a second, but before I do, I just want to address that point. And really interestingly, you said that the UK has the second most, right? And that's
at some stage, yeah.
At some stage, and I think that's interesting, because actually, that's not a good thing. That's a really bad thing. And the fact is that we reached that point because of the way that we as the country have handled the vaccine. We didn't prioritize the vaccine. We prioritized the economy, as we have done, and it's shown over the summer the amount of time.
How can you say that?
Can I finish my point?
You can, but you can't say we didn't prioritize the vaccine. How?
Why did we? Sorry, not the vaccine. Sorry, we didn't prioritize health in terms of like not the vaccine. Sorry, in terms of like coronavirus recovery, right? We didn't prioritize that. We prioritized the economy, and as a result, we're at a stage where we've got the second highest cases of deaths in the world. The problem with coronavirus and all of this conversation is it's a global issue. Us in the UK, all of us being vaccinated is great, but globally, there's still, the whole world could then die out. And we're like, oh, well, we vaccinated everybody over here. And it's that selfishness that has brought, I just think it's ridiculous. I think we can't call ourselves Great Britain in that sense and applaud how moral and how ethical we are. And at the same time kind of go, nah, mate, you know what? These are our vaccines. You can't have any. But I'm going to bring
every country, but just to robot that, every country in this period is protecting itself. The reason why the UK is in a good position is because our government took a bet on some of the vaccines we've developed and stockpiled lots of them. It paid off because it ended up being a good bet, and that's why we have lots of vaccines. Any country in our position would do exactly the same thing and do right by its citizens before it tries to appease the world.
We had a huge, I'm going to bring in Torin. Torin, can you come on? But I'm going to really quickly just refer back to the beginning of this whole pandemic, when we were asking for doctors to come over from China, from East Asia. We were asking for PPE to come over. If they had done exactly the same thing that we're doing right now and said, oh, you know what, mate, these are ours for us, you can go find your own, we would have, I was going to use a swear word, we would have literally taken them down. We would not have allowed that to stand. And the fact is that there is a double standard going on here. But Torin, let us know, what do you think about about who and us being morally corrupt if we do not share this vaccine with the world?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think this is just all, again, just another extension of a problem that's being caused with the whole COVID-19 thing. I think, from my perspective, I'm not going to call myself an anti-vaxxer because I'm not. Again, I'm just coming from the perspective of someone I would say I'm skeptical and cautious to the rollout and stuff that's going on, just from the aspect that it came out so quick and those sort of things. And yeah, again, I'm quite skeptical on the speed that things are going at. So for me, in terms of the morals and ethics, I see that being one argument. And again, I'm torn between what Mike said, in the sense that at the end of the day, we have to protect ourselves at that point. But then I really agreed with your point, Ashton, where it was like, at the end of the day, this is a pandemic for the whole entire world. We really need to look at how do we stop that, because we can have all these vaccines and stuff like that, but once the borders open again and people are coming into the country, it's like, what's really going to, it's not really stopping the problem where it begins. Do you know what I mean? I think that's sort of it gives us the opportunity to draw it back, start sharing these things with the world, and give ourselves the opportunity to sort of move in and progressing together rather than just ourselves.
And the joke is that we've actually spread the vaccine to, not vaccine, my gosh, we've actually spread COVID to other countries. There were instances really early on where, you know, I think it was like Jamaica didn't have any cases until there was one imported from the UK. And I was like, great, here we are again, you know, spreading coronavirus to places and colonizing them and then getting them in trouble and then not being able to then share the vaccine with them just seems a little bit sad and morally unethical from my standpoint.
So I get your point, and I guess we should be very frank and clear in saying that this is a debate about morality, isn't it? About what's morally correct, what's morally wrong. Not so much. I don't want to get into the numbers and you know and the WHO and their history, but even on morality, I just don't understand what kind of country wouldn't prioritize its citizens. And notice I didn't say not help anyone else. I said prioritize its citizens. I like, for me, that's the whole point of a country. And I guess for those who have globalist tendencies, this is the perfect story for them because they're all world citizens. However, this period showed us as you travel around the world, all these globalists were like, pull up the bridge. No one can travel. Ban all travel. Everyone was saying that suddenly when it came to COVID. So nation states are bad. I just hope the UK, in trying to appease these abstract conceptions of morality from the WHO, I hope they don't shoot themselves in the foot, because we often do this. We have this ideological fetish with being top of the lists for stuff, whether it's COVID deaths or it's the most moral. We just want to be the top, right? So I really do hope that the UK does not shoot itself in the foot with this, because any country that pre-orders, and bear in mind, Israel's in the same position. The UAE, the United Arab Emirates, are in the same position we are in. Yet questions like this aren't being asked of them, because it's only the UK that would buy it and be like, oh right, yeah, the world, and then we forget about our own when we are literally in the middle of a pandemonium.
I just want to say it's not the WHO, the WHO that we have to respond to. It's God at the end of the day, right? It's going to be like,
because you believe in God, but half this country doesn't.
But that's, I don't know. I feel like there's something about like being compassionate. Why
did you just make an argument about we need to answer to God?
Why not? The UK, we claim to be a Christian country. This country claims to be Christian. This country is led by those laws, by those rules. We still have a parliament that runs on those morals, and a queen and all that stuff that run by it. So why not use that argument? Why not use a compassionate argument?
It's irrelevant because
but it is relevant, because when it's not necessary. Right? Is it necessary to vaccinate every single person in the UK? Probably not. And the chances are that we aren't going to vaccinate, not every 100%. We've already heard from Torrin, for example, who's not a vaccine critical, right? Rather than, or skeptical, I think it was that you said. No, there are lots of people like that aren't going to be taking it. There are lots of people that are young people, that are kids maybe, that don't need it, or that are completely healthy, that don't need the vaccine. And
I hear you.
Mentality thing. So why should we be kind of like hoarding all of this material when it isn't needed? I don't understand. It's not like
I want to answer some of the stuff you're saying, because one,
it's not like it's not like the vaccine's going to be stopped. There's going to be no more vaccines being made. There is a continuation. There's still
that might happen.
But right now that's not the case. And why are we moving from this idea?
There was a threat just 2 weeks ago. I mean, in the EU right now, there's battle about where the vaccines are going to go. Like this is happening right now. In fact, there was a time where AstraZeneca was worried that they wouldn't be able to fulfill the vaccine orders. I think to think we have an unlimited supply of vaccines forever, it's just not true. And bear in mind, hold on a minute. Hold on. I did listen to you for a while. Just 1 minute. The vaccines and the virus is also mutating. Let's not forget. And if it mutates enough cycles, we'll have to create new vaccines. So these are incredibly complex decisions that are being made. And to your Christian point, right? What's Christianity got to do with nationhood? I mean, nationhood is just us deciding where do we draw the line as it pertains to priority. So we're saying, should we prioritize members like the 68 million people, the 74 million people in the UK, or the world? And somehow you think it's more moral to prioritize the world, because here's the thing about priority. Some people won't get it. So the question is it members of the public in the UK that don't get it, or is it other people in the world? That's the debate here. So you're saying it should be people in the world, and then people in the UK shouldn't get it. Is that your point?
I think I'm just going to jump in. I think I hear what both of you are saying, and it's one of the things where neither of you are right or wrong. But I think if
no, you can't come in and do that parent thing. You're all right. You're all right. No,
hey, I'm coming in.
Everyone's right. Give me a break.
If we actually look at what the World Health Organization have actually suggested for the UK to do, they've said once we've actually, vaccinated our vulnerable groups, then that's when we pass on those vaccinations. At the end of the day, I hear what you're saying, prioritize the whole of the UK, but there's a large majority of us that are going to be okay, even if we suffer from COVID-19. But people over the world...
How do you know?
No, I'm just saying. So I think personally, from my moral standpoint, and again, who am I to be the judge on what the whole country should do? But from my moral standpoint, it's a point where I see it being a thing of, okay, once we have our vulnerable groups down, why can't the rest of the world start getting their vulnerable groups?
Because there's a lot of people who don't know they have underlying conditions, who are younger, who will get this virus and who will die. Right? Vulnerable groups, as defined by the government, are a very set of people. And it so happens that the money the government used to buy these vaccines come from the taxes that people pay, right? So I don't think it's crazy to say that I don't know if I have an underlying condition, so I just want the vaccine and I want my government to prioritize me with this vaccine. I don't think that's an immoral thing to do. I don't think it's moral to say that.
Can you not see with that sentence? Okay, on a morality standpoint, that sentence was literally selfish in that sense, and I understand.
So in the middle of the pandemic, this is when we all need to be selfless. Sorry, Torin. Everyone can live, I'll die, because that's what it means to be moral.
We did see this, right? Though during the first 2 lockdowns, there were a lot of community sharing groups online on Facebook where people were kind of saying, I will give up my time and I will give up some of the food that I have. I will give up the loo roll that I have for you to be able to eat and do what you need to do, right? And that's the point, is that we are, as human beings, we have this instinct to share and to share our love and share our resources. What I don't understand is why we have vulnerable people. We do. But there are also vulnerable people elsewhere. Are we saying that our vulnerable people are worth more and are valued more than other people elsewhere? No.
I'm saying our government should prioritize the citizens that elected them there. And the governments in China, as they have done, have prioritized Chinese nationals. All I'm saying here isn't that you let everyone die. That's not the point at all. And I just think it's so interesting because it's the UK that always has these discussions where for some reason, like at the most critical moment. No, I think it's because we're really preoccupied. I mean, I love democracy. One of the sad things about democracy is it's really inept when it comes to crises. Because with crises, what you don't need is a 6-hour debate about morality. What you need is someone to make decisions that will actually save and preserve lives. We've seen Boris Johnson dither for months. And I think that dithering is akin to negligence, which I think in part is responsible for the amount of deaths we have in the UK today. Why? Because he's trying to appease all sorts of fractions in his party. The billionaires are getting involved. He's doing so much. We need someone to make decisions at this period. And I don't get how this has got anything to do with being like nice and Christian.
I didn't say.
Not you. I'm just saying, like Torin said about, it's selfish to say I want to live. Kill me.
I think one of the most important things that we should look at, if we even look at the first lockdown and our behavior during the pandemic, is I think the energy that you're on at the moment, Mike, is the same energy of the people that were panic buying at the beginning that left people vulnerable from food.
No, it's not.
Because it is. It's using your priorities and thinking, why I'm going to die. Let me think about myself. But if we just moved with our brains and moved and had the balance of actually looking at, okay, look, we have these vulnerable groups. Of course, there's going to be people here and there that goes. And at the end of the day, it's a difficult decision to make. But I'm saying it's a decision that balances morals and the actual pandemic that's going on at the same place. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's why my perspective on this is we need to start looking at the balance and start looking at the morals and seeing how we can actually impact the whole world and not just ourselves.
And on that note, I'm going to pause this discussion because it does get really heated, and it is I'm losing my voice. Excuse me. And it is something that we feel really passionate about, right? And I just want us all to move with kindness and compassion.
Mike's not going to like that.
In this conversation, but also outside of it, okay? We're all having a tough time in the pandemic. We all feel really strongly about certain things, and that's okay. And it's okay that we want to prioritize our own health over other people's, but I think sometimes we just need to take a moment and kind of go, why are we prioritizing other people over ourselves over other people? What value have we internally or kind of given to ourselves that we're not giving to other people? And on that note, we're going to pause this discussion. Thanks very much, Torrin, for your perspective on this. But do comment in on our YouTube, or if you want to get involved on our Twitter as well, do link in and let us know what it is that you think when it comes to this topic. Do you agree that the WHO should be stepping in and sort of effectively kind of allowing us and forcing us to abide by certain moral principles, or should we as a UK be allowed to practice vaccine nationalism is the term that is being used? Should we be allowed to do that? Mike, have you've spotlighted me again. I really hate when you spotlight me. It's ridiculous. It was that moment when you have, like, you know, in movies and you've got the American flag in the background, and there's like a we know someone's giving a motivational speech or something. Anyway, just be kind, guys. Be kind. You're on mute, Mike.
So I buy what you're saying. I just think it's interesting. Obviously, kindness looks very different to different people, and I think that's probably something to slide in there. When folks go, you know, we should be really kind of kind. As I think Stalin said it not too long ago, that, you know, instinctively we may feel like our lives are more important than the other person's, and you know that's something to put out there too. But you are right that we get passionate, but that's the whole point of this. If you don't like argument or debate or discussion, this probably isn't the show for you. But if you're interested in different perspectives, then you're welcome. So we're gonna move on now, I guess, to something that should hopefully bring us together. We only have time really for one statement. So one of our passions here at Common Sense is having these kind of discussions where we hear different perspectives and we have at it and we learn from each other and we do that kind of stuff. So I'm going to say a statement now, and this is a game called Change My Mind. And basically what happens is I'm going to read a statement out, or I forgot how it works actually. Actually, you might have to help me with this. I read a statement out and then you have to change my mind. Is that it?
Yep. So I've got to convince you of the opposite. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, and then you guys listening and watching can let us know if Afshan's changed your mind. This is meant to test how kind of quick and witty Afshan can be, and can she think on her feet.
Know I'm quick and witty anyway, so
we'll see. She'll do one and I'll do one, and we'll go from there. So Afshan, here's your statement. People who drive automatic cars are lazy and untalented. Change my mind.
I love this one. So I only drive an automatic. I can't drive a manual. And the reason for that is because I overthink a lot when it comes to driving. So I'm not just thinking about the car itself or kind of moving and the gears and things like that. I'm thinking about the engine, and I ask all those questions. And I'm basically overthinking everything. I'm a creative person. Any given time, I'm thinking about 5 or 6 different plays or fiction or TV shows that I'm writing or currently working on. Driving at the same time, using a manual car, which, you know, is using gears and you have to use a clutch, is really difficult, because I'm having to do that. Plus, I'm having to use a steering wheel and indicators and be safe, and then also look at where my destination is. So actually, it's not about being lazy and untalented. It's about being so intelligent, I would say, and being so creatively focused that the ability to just focus on the gears and the clutch and the car itself can be quite difficult. And my time is not up here, but I'm just going to say that I think it's a different way of learning. It's a different way of being, and I'm not ascribing a value judgment to automatic or to manual driving. It's just that if I don't have to change the gears and it does it for me, why should I not? Why are we making it, things more difficult? Because in the same light, then maybe we should all be walking or using a horse and carriage rather than driving a car. Thank you very much. I think that's my minute.
Did you? Who were you thinking? Was it the audience? Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Well, folks, what do you think? Did Afshan change your mind? Let us know in the comment section. Did she change your mind? I'll be honest in saying I'm not quite sure my mind was changed by that, but that's just me. But I'd love to see what other people think. How did you find doing that? Was it easy for you?
Yeah, I drive automatic. Like, thanks, Torrin. Torrin rates the effort.
Good effort. This is like school when you get good effort.
Yeah, I tried driving manual. Yeah, I tried driving manual, and I did about 7 years ago, and I just found that I couldn't do it because I was focused too much on, asking and wondering how the clutch worked, and it was like almost like I needed to know the how before I could use the clutch, because then I was like, why does it work when I'm in fourth gear? Because I could start the car in fourth gear, and it was like, you should be able to do that because you should stall and blah blah blah. And maybe one day I'll do manual once I'm learning. I will eventually probably learn how to drive a manual car, but if I don't need it, then why waste my time and energy, guys? I've got loads to write. Siobhan
says convincing, but didn't change my mind. Adesewa says nope. Afshan, do you learn manual? So from those two comments, unfortunately, Afshan, I don't think anyone's mind was changed today.
Well, I changed my own mind. Thank you very much.
If all else fails, you have to check yourself. Okay, so I'm meant to be going next. We'll do a really quick one.
Yeah. People who play professional sports should not carry out campaigns unrelated to their industry. Change my mind. So you have to convince me that they should carry out campaigns unrelated to their industry. And I know that this is a personal gripe for you, Mike. Change my mind. Go.
Well, there's multiple ways I can come at this from, but I'll be very simple in saying, the whole point of life, the great narrative of life is that we all become better, right? Better. That's intrinsically a good thing. Whether it's that we should have better living conditions, or we should have more disposable income, or we should have better health. That's the whole point. That's why we're all living, because we all aspire to be better. Now, football in and of itself is kind of useless in a way, because it just pacifies you. It's a bit of entertainment that gets you thinking aloft for a bit. But it doesn't make your life better. It makes your life better in the moment, but doesn't move you forward. When a footballer or someone who's a sports person takes that thing that typically is just entertaining and turns it into something that actually moves humanity forward in a positive way, for me, that's the sweet spot. Because now you're taking something that is good, for the moment, and you're adding it to something that would actually make people's lives materially better. So I think sports people should use their influence, their social capital, and not just use it to in a conceited way of accumulating wealth for themselves. They should spread it and make the lives of other people better.
Wow.
And I'm done.
Wow.
End scene.
What do we think, guys? Do we agree with MT here? Did he change your mind? I am of the perspective that people in the play sports should be carrying out social justice work or activism as well. I think everybody has the right and the responsibility to do that. Torrance says, an amazing argument. I was more satisfied knowing Mike had to go against his own belief. Did you convince us?
Well, this is the thing. Like, one of the key staples of journalism is, you have to kind of see debates from as many perspectives as possible. So I don't necessarily believe everything I just said, but I do understand those who argue that sports stars should use their social capital to advance some goal forward. I get the argument, and it can be forceful.
And you still believe the opposite? You're still wrong, basically, then?
I believe the opposite. I for a number of different reasons that we've gone into before. I mean, I don't believe in a priori. I don't think if you're a sports person, you should never do anything. Of course not. But I do think there is a problem when sports stars co-opt movements and use their stardom to suck up all the attention from the actual people on the ground who are doing the work. That for me is a problem. When a local campaigner gets swept to the side because one famous footballer is coming to the community center. I get that it's the nature of life, but for me, that does irk me a bit. So I would love footballers to use their influence, but do it quietly, maybe behind the scenes, maybe fund things. There's lots of ways you can help out without being in front and taking everything.
Thank you, Mike. Must have killed Mike inside to argue against his beliefs.
No, I'm still alive. I'm very much still alive.
One day we're going to have a conversation about why Bush did 9/11, because that's always a fun one that I know a lot of people have very passionate perspectives on. But until then, guys, do share, like, subscribe to our channel. If you enjoyed it, if you hated it, let us know in the comments. Obviously, don't let us know if you didn't like me. I know that you all obviously did love me the best out of me and Mike, but it's not a competition. This is not a competition at all. It's been really lovely speaking to all of you, with all our guests. Thank you so much for coming in and chiming in, letting us know your perspectives and views. To all those that comments, please do keep commenting in. We've got a couple of podcasts coming out this week, so do keep your eyes peeled on our TCS Network social media. That's Twitter, Instagram, and on Facebook, and also LinkedIn, I believe. And do check out our website, www.tcsnetwork.co.uk. Any last words, final words, Mike? No? Okay. In that case, I will see you all same time, same place next week. I've been Afshan D'Souza Lodi, and my co-host was MT Omni, and we've been Common Sense Live. Goodbye.